Hey, my name is Kelvin, and this is going to be a quick recap of my photography journey in 2024. So, 2024 was my first year of doing hobbyist photography. I had still been using the Fuji X-T20 when the year had started. I took that with me to LA, where I went to Disneyland with a couple of friends. The sun, was kind of a welcome relief coming off of Vancouver's winter weather, which was a lot of um, rain, grayness, darkness. What was sort of nice about going to California to shoot with the XT20 though was the fact that it's a very bright city. There's lots of sun, the lighting was very good, and for like an APS-C sensor, it was just doing the job. Because I went with friends, it was a lot of shooting with my friends, and so the 56-1.2 probably did most of the job. One of the things I did notice though with shooting in Disneyland and throughout most of the trip was that it did feel like I was treating it kind of like vacation photography. So I described that sort of as being like you're in a space and you see a thing that you like and you just sort of take a picture of it and as like proof that I was here, like with your phone or something. And I was doing that a lot with my XT20 when I was in California. And sort of looking back at the photos, like all the photos that I'm proud of are the ones of, portraits of my friends. But there wasn't, because it was like the f1.2 or 1.4, it really was just them in the space. The lighting was okay, but I wasn't placing them in a setting. There wasn't really much thought on composition, and the wider shots that did take of the locations meant that it was just a lot of random shots that aren't really photography style beautifulness. And wasn't really sure at that point where to take my photography because I did know I like taking pictures of people. Um, but yeah, it was an interesting trip to sort of first explore like, oh, maybe I need to be a bit more intentional with my photos. After the LA trip, I had just gotten laid off from work, and it was during that time when I was sort of looking to just maybe get away and maybe explore photography a bit more now that, I suddenly had way too much vacation days and way too much free time on my hands. Sort of doing a quick poll of whose friends' couches I could crash on. My friend Aaron in Edinburgh, Scotland, offered me his place to take a look. I also saw that my favorite K-pop group, Dreamcatcher, would be performing in London at the same week that he was available, which meant that suddenly the prospect of going up to Scotland and London was suddenly in the cards. I arrive in London. I don't really have a plan besides that I need to go to the concert and that I need to take some photos. There were a number of stops that I definitely knew I wanted to go back towards. So I had been to London only once up until that point. And, it really was like all the places and all the things that I remember seeing, I didn't have good pictures for. So it was really just like, let's just start there. Let's go to Westminster. Let's take pictures of Big Ben. Let's take pictures of the London Eye, Buckingham Palace, sort of all the big stops. I did that, and then I went to Soho for dinner on the first or second night. And Soho for me was just like I had been there during the day the first time, but to sort of see Soho at night, that was what gave me sort of my first bit of inspiration for taking cool like night shots. During that time, I was just sort of wandering around trying to take pictures of like the shop fronts and the storekeepers, shopkeepers. The neon lights were kind of cool. I bumped into another street photographer called Tom, and I didn't know this, but Tom's actually like a popular street photographer over in London. He's bumped into a lot of, he's seen a lot of people on the streets, and he's taken a lot of photos of a lot of strangers. He has his own social media following, which has I think like 10,000 followers. Tom basically just wanders around London, building a name for himself by taking cool, candid shots of people exploring the streets of London. And So we exchanged information. We started chatting. I followed him on some of his photo walks, and it was just really cool to see like his process as someone who was trying to build his brand and turn his photography sort of into a full time business, and seeing what like opportunities came from that space. So it was really cool to get to know him a bit and hear his story. I started to uh, I was very inspired from his story and sort of seeing how unapologetic he is about getting cool photos to other people. Like that to me is just it's something that I didn't really fathom as an opportunity here in Vancouver, because our city sometimes can be a little. It really was just sort of one challenge with shooting photos in London for me, which was that during the time that I was there, it was really cloudy and the skies were very gray. There wasn't a lot of opportunity to take sort of dramatic shots of the city, and the lighting was just very flat everywhere that I went, which meant that I did have to focus a lot more on sort of exploring composition and finding interesting subjects. Um, I think overall it kind of went okay, but it really wasn't until like Scotland where things started to click a bit more for me. Scotland, Edinburgh. Uh, what to say about it? Edinburgh was kind of an interesting one. The city itself is beautiful. It's a lot of grace, a lot of verticality with like Calton Hill, Edinburgh Castle, like a lot of big structures, and I don't know. It was just really cool. I think a lot of my favorite shots from Edinburgh really came from like being uh, accessing high spaces. So climbing up Calton Hill, climbing up Arthur's Seat, and sort of seeing the vast landscapes. Unlike London, Edinburgh also has very dramatic skies. So the skylight is also very intense. And even just standing in the same spot for like an hour or two, like you get like some really contrasting shadows, and I think it adds a lot to the vibe and creates a lot more opportunities without having to necessarily force yourself to go from one part of the city to like another city. I did a lot of street photography there. I picked up what I had learned from Tom and offered to take some photos for some strangers as well. And I also ended up helping Aaron's orchestra do a photo shoot for sort of their orchestra just because I had the opportunity to. Really, I would say though, it was during Edinburgh when I had noticed the missing opportunities that I had with my current setup. So the Fuji X-T20 struggles in sort of low light scenarios. The resolution for the images wasn't super perfect, and I had lost like a lot of images just on the autofocus and subject tracking. These were all sort of challenges that I had just sort of gotten used to because I had only been shooting with the Fuji X-T20. I didn't know what modern camera tech would kind of look like. But it was sort of taking note of these challenges where, hey, how come like I'm shooting in an orchestra at a church where there is enough light, but even then I still need to shoot my ISO up to like 6400, and it's not like the nice type of ISO. It's like really noisy. Um, so while I had really good shots during the day with the dramatic lighting and all of that, the dynamic range, the noise in my photos started to really make me think about like what my next upgrade would be. So when I got back to Vancouver, my friend Nick suggested that I upgrade my cameras after seeing sort of the photos that I had taken over in Scotland and London. I told him a bit about the challenges that I had and what type of things that I was looking for in my next camera, and he's just like, Kelvin, you should just get the Sony A7 IV. And for financial reasons that I won't dive into here, it was just sort of the perfect opportunity to upgrade my camera. So we did that. We picked that up. We picked up a 24 to 70 Sigma, and we picked up the 85 f1.8, which is basically the lens kit that I had going into Scotland outside of the telephoto. So with the Sony, way better auto tracking, way nicer low light performance. The ISO is much more workable as a result of also the increased resolution. And then sort of throughout the summer, I just did a bunch of photo shoots with it, helping people, doing portraits, cherry blossom festival, anime conventions. I mean, it was just sort of the perfect tool for the job. So this sort of opens up the next chapter of the journey, which was preparing and going to Japan in May. Japan was, I mean, ultimately for me, because it was my first time, it really was meant to just sort of be a vacation. But that didn't mean like I didn't want to take photos and take really good photos if I could. I follow a lot of Japanese Instagram photographers, and they always have really nice like portraits. The lighting's super nice. Some of their farmlands, their street photography, the late night shots in some of the neon lit areas. It just felt like there was a lot of opportunity to take a lot of really cool photos. So I did want to make sure that like the tools that I was bringing would do the job. Now, Nick had suggested sort of on his end, because he has an X-T4, because that was sort of like a bigger camera. He also wanted to bring like a little pocket-sized, smaller one as sort of an option. And he also proposed to me to pick up the Fuji X106, which at the time was just arriving on market. So the X106 has a lot of really cool features, like the film simulations that come with Fuji cameras. But the point is, it is a point and shoot that can fit in your pocket. And especially now that I have a Sony, it is very heavy. It was very obvious from the get-go that it's gonna be really tiring to carry that with me everywhere I went, especially like morning walks. So I said yes, and we had sort of picked these up with the expectation that we just resell them after the trip is over. Um, but that didn't happen, as you can see. Going into Tokyo and Kyoto and Osaka, we had a lot of fun shooting photos using the Sony's like tracking options. I did a lot of panned camera shots, which if you go to my Instagram, you'll definitely be seeing those. There's a lot of late night street photography, lots of food. I kind of stuck mostly to sort of the 24 to 70 range on those, but I was definitely craving for a telephoto for a lot of those areas, which was something that I wish I had for my Japan trip, and is something that I have acquired for my next trip to Japan. I can do a whole video on Japan though. I don't want to keep up too much of your time. But I'll just say shout outs to Nick for waking up really early to try and shoot Mount Fuji in the morning. Because even though for me, I had committed to trying to do more photography this year, I could not wake up for the life of me. So after reflecting on Japan and all the 6,000 photos that I had taken there, I had started to really get very comfortable with my tools and know like what I'm capable of doing, what types of shooting I like to do. For me, I definitely like street. I like portraits. I like architecture. And it really like for me, I like shooting in cities. I like shooting with like really cool like backgrounds with a lot of like bokeh in the background. Really interesting like compositions and the structure, and try and capture the feeling of the sprawling city, high shots, etc. And so when I went to LA again in August, this time I only brought the Fuji X106, knowing that there weren't a lot of opportunities for me to get those types of shots in LA. In LA, you're driving everywhere, you're not really walking around the city, etc. So after LA, there really wasn't that many other projects that I had in mind for the rest of the year. There was a family trip to Souk, which is close to Victoria, with my family, but there wasn't a lot of cool photos there. I went to Seattle and Victoria with my girlfriend as well on separate occasions, but we didn't, really focus too much on photography projects. There have been other opportunities with shooting my friends' events and, my family events and my friends' engagement shoots and, little projects here and there. But I wouldn't say that those were all sort of big uh, projects as big as sort of traveling to another destination and sort of shooting with intention. But each of those shoots do always give me a little bit more opportunity on where I want to grow next. And that's what's coming next. Sort of recapping this year, we started in LA, we went to Scotland and London, we went to Japan, we went to LA again, and then we had sort of this collection of smaller events and family trips and, sort of seeing what my tools could do in all these different situations. And I would confidently say that the Sony A7 IV for me right now is the right tool. And the X106 is something that I still have a lot of uh, opportunity to sort of play around with and to sort of do a bit more. I don't think I've really pushed the limits on the X106 yet, but I'm excited to get more use out of it this upcoming year. That's really it for me on 2024. I think it was a really good year for my photography skills, and I've grown a lot in it. I feel there's still so much opportunity to get better, and I'm just really excited to see what I can get in Japan in February, but also just for the rest of the year. Anyways, thanks for watching. This is a new channel and a new project. If you're watching here, I probably know you already, so hi. Thanks for supporting me as usual, because everyone that will probably see this is someone that already supports me in some way or another. We'll be doing a lot of different types of videos. It won't just be photography here. But if you're interested in following my journey, please feel free to follow and subscribe. And you'll see a lot more videos from me, hopefully. All right. Yeah, we'll do our best. Bye.